All right, everybody, welcome to the Mindful SRNA or RNA podcast. I have a awesome and very special guest here today. I am so excited to dive into this conversation. Literally, before we even hit record, he was like dropping gems. So I am just so excited for this. I have Keith here, and I know we're going to tackle it because Keith owns his own recruiting business, KTE Services, medical services, correct? I know you guys have probably seen emails. I still get all the emails. I'm always looking to see what the jobs are, what's going on out there. So Keith, before we dive into a little bit of the controversy, tell me a little bit about your business and just how you got started.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, my name's Keith Evola. I'm president of KTE Services, and we've been doing anesthesia recruiting for 24 years. We do some locums. We do mainly permanent placement, but we do PRN work. Like if we have our practices, they come to us and say, hey, we need a locum. Can you help us out? Great. If it's PM&R, great. Whatever we can do to kind of help them fill their needs.
Perfect. So Keith has a lot, like especially for you new grads. We're going to talk about new grads. We're going to talk about jobs. We're going to talk about kind of some of the gaps that I think are out there when you graduate and you're starting jobs and trying to get your big CRNA job and stuff like that. So we're going to dive into that. But what I first want to just talk about is the first conversation me and Keith had is you were on, I believe it was the thread Reddit. Was that correct? Freaking Reddit.
Yes, that's
Yes.
right. It was Reddit. Oh my goodness.
Yes, I know. I'm like, it's like, I don't know. It's a special place. But anyways, I want you to talk to me a little bit about the comments that you got in there because you had a really good kind of answer for that. And I want to just start off with that. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just started actually going on Reddit here recently to kind of just like observe and just see what people say about jobs, their day in the life, places to go. Everybody's got a comment for everything on Reddit. And, I came across a comment, or I should say there was a CRNA who was struggling on Reddit. And they were looking for a job in a particular market. And they didn't know where to go, and I just mentioned in a comment myself, we'd love to speak with you, love to chat with you about, what you're looking for, your needs and wants, so on and so forth. But please send me a message. So let's just see what we can do to help you. And, I got a comment back by somebody on there. And not that I take things to heart, but it kind of hit home as far as recruiters in general. And the comment was, stay away from these people. All they do is steal money from you. And I was like, that's interesting. And look, I get it. Practices that I recruit for all over the country, they've been down the roads with recruiters, permanent recruiters, locum recruiters, anything from, just sending them candidates that aren't truly interested in a position to, talking over candidates to really know what they're looking for. They have to sell them a job, sell. My goodness, I don't want to say that it's endless, but that's really not what we're about. We truly aren't. And I get there's a stigma out there with recruitment companies. And, what I can say for my company and, the people that work with me, we're not about that. We're about having meaningful conversations with candidates. We want to learn about them. And I guess we'll kind of dive into that a little bit, or we can really dive into it if you really want to.
Yeah.
But we like to have meaningful conversations from, learning about the person. Where are they looking geographically? What kind of cases are they looking for? What kind of cases are they not looking for? Do they want to take call? Do they not want call? Are they looking for certain shifts? Are they looking for private practice to hospital employee? There's private equity out there, and there are those things that come along with that. But we really like to dive into not only what a candidate or person, I should say, is looking for, but what they're about. What's their home life about? Are you looking for certain shifts because you want to be home with your kids that are growing up? All those kind of things, that really meaningful conversations. And through the years of of doing this, the one things that I found out was, um, even if I didn't place somebody, I was able to give them good advice, you know, really kind of what the market is in a particular area. Um, and those conversations resonated with people, and they would come back to me 4 or 5 years later, and they'd be like, Keith, we had a really good conversation 5 years ago. Do you remember me? And I'm like, of course I remember you. This is what and some people say it's a gift, some people say it's a curse, right? But I remember people. You're not a number, you're a person. And those are the things we really focus on when we are trying to find you a job. And for that matter, if we don't, they come back to us at the practice that they may have taken a job at and said, hey, Keith, remember that conversation? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, our group needs a recruiter. Can you come and help us? And that's really what over 24 years, um, my experience has been. And again, I certainly understand, not that I pay attention to what a lot of recruiters do, but I hear about it, but that's just not us.
I love that. And I think that's amazing. And there's so many just good little things in there I want to pick apart. Number one, you gave a lot of things for new grads or even like CRNAs, if you're looking for different jobs, things to look for. Because I get a lot of DMs about, Amanda, I got these 2 job offers. What do I do? How do I figure it out? Blah, 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 blah. And I always turn it back to them. And I'm like, you have to look at it from a priority type of standpoint. Like everything you just said, what kind of shifts do you want? What kind of cases do you want? What are your non-negotiables? What are you willing to kind of be negotiable with? And I always say it comes with life seasons. And I tell everybody, I feel like I built my life around my nursing career. Like my nursing career came first and I built my life around it and I burned out hard. Yes, I got into CRNA school. I got through it, but that's a lot of the reason for my platform. I burned out so hard. Now I build my career around my life. My life comes first, and then I build my career around that. So that's what I always tell y'all. And he just gave some good things for you guys to look at when you're looking at jobs is what do you want looking at those things? And sometimes it is nice to have a recruiter who knows what's out there and who cares about placing you. The second thing I love that you said is, and I say this all the time, y'all, no matter where you're at in your CRNA journey, you have to connect with people. It is about connections. And I know, yes, you want to get into programs. Yes, you want to network. Yes, you want, right? I want to get into CRNA school. I want to pass CRNA school. You want those things. However, I always say when you are networking, it is more about what you can give to that person in that conversation more than what you can get. And when you reframe your communication, your networking around what you can give, everything changes. Because you're not coming from this place of, I need this, I got to have this, because that's really not what connecting is about. Like, it's just not what it's about. It's about giving to others and being selfless to that. And then in return, yes, things will come back to you. So I just love the fact that you're building your business around just talking to people. What do you need? Can I help you or not? And even with me and my business, I'll talk to anybody. I'll coach anybody, whatever, whether you work for me or not, it doesn't matter. If you come in my space, I'm going to do all that I can to take care of you. And I feel like I get that same vibe from you, Keith. And I love that. I
Oh,
absolutely love that.
100%. Like the way I look at things is, and again, if you want to go back to the stigma, people, you're not a number, you're a person. Everybody's got different needs and wants, right? And as you go through your career, the one thing that I've learned later on in your career, your priorities change, right? Or, it's right. It's just the way it is. And, you can be wanting to work all the call when you're coming out of school and make all the money. But then, you could be settling down, having a family. And it's like, what's the priority now? Well, my wife or husband and my kids are a priority. I don't want to work as hard, right? You may want to work hard, but you want quality of life. And like all those things are just so important. And we just take pride in, knowing like we want to help people, right? Just again, it goes back to those meaningful conversations.
Yeah. And I think anywhere, I think in healthcare, I'll like speak for myself at least, but sometimes it just feels like we're like the minions at the point of care and nobody's caring about us. And so it's really nice when we can bring people in our circle who actually care about the people that are laying the hands on the sick and laying the hands on the people and taking care of them at that level. Because I feel like we get overlooked, like, oh, they're fine. They're just doing all the things with the patients. And so it's just really nice when people care about us and they care about us being in good jobs and stuff like that. Because yeah, sometimes we just feel like little minions.
Well, yeah, and look, it's mind-boggling to me, and I learned about this a long time ago, and that's why I really want to get the message out there that you're not alone. Like anesthesia residency programs, the SRNA programs, nobody teaches you for what life is, how to find a job, how to interview, how to prepare a CV, questions, comments, concerns, the market in a particular area. What's the market in Louisville, Kentucky like? You know, all those different things. Do you want to be a 1099 employee? Do you want to be a hospital employee? All those different things that they nobody prepares you for when you come out.
Yeah.
And we like to be a source for that, because it's got to be scary. I mean, look, Amanda, you went through it, right? How much you went through and how to find a job and, your path. But, the conversation, and I call, especially the SRNAs that are coming out of school, I call them all kids, right? You go to school, you learn your clinical cases, all that, and they're not kids. But when they're coming out of school, it's overwhelming. It's hard.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I say these meaningful conversations, we have hour plus conversations with the kids coming out because they don't know. They could be taken advantage of. And, we personally, we're very picky and choosy on who we recruit for. And we want to make sure, and I guess it goes back to like how I was brought up, like show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. I kind of take that in business where I want to recruit for good clients and great candidates. And I realize there's no pie in the sky job. There isn't. Every job has an opportunity, but as long as those practices are moving forward to work better, I can help you recruit. That's just what we do over here.
Perfect. So that's actually a good place to start. So when you're looking for a hospital to partner with, because you place a lot of people, I mean, you place a lot of different professions, like NPs, anesthesiologists, CRNAs, but when you're looking specifically for a hospital or a facility that you choose to recruit for, because this could also help some of y'all, what do you look for? Like, what are you looking for within that company that makes you say, okay, I will recruit humans into your facility or your hospital?
So we have a business development person, and I kind of work hand in hand with her to really kind of dig into, like you learn through the years, like kind of who the good ones are, and you really want to attach yourself to them. You know who the bad ones are, and sometimes you hear multiple times of how a practice works or how people are treated, how like CRNA, I call it CRNA friendliness. Are they able to do their own cases, right?
Can we
All
give
those
our own
things.
Zofran? Can I push Zofran without asking for permission? Go.
Right. So, when we want to vet a practice, what we do is we don't want to just talk to leadership. We want to talk to attendings. We want to talk to CRNAs, sometimes the chief CRNA, and speak with them, really about the culture. Speak to the CRNAs that are on the ground. Speak to maybe a few new ones that are there. I always say that during an interview, it's important you talk to leadership, but it's important to speak to attendings or CRNAs that are practicing within the practice and have one-on-one conversations with them and get the vibe and see what they feel. Were you overpromised things when you came here? Right? I mean, that tends to happen sometimes, but it's so important to talk to a plethora of people when you go in an interview. My thought process is if you're just interviewing with leadership, you know, I would ask to speak with other people. That's just me. Or
Yeah.
get even if it's after hours. I mean, most people will speak to you whenever. Hey, can I speak to your chief CRNA? And I get it, you're busy doing cases throughout the day. After hours. But having
Yeah.
a nice conversation with them to see if it's something that you want to pursue.
Yeah, I think that's great advice too. Because remember, you are interviewing them just as much. And again, we really are, we were in this kind of big age of networking. This person, okay, bring them on. It was kind of easy. But now I still, and even think as your first job, like, yes, you want to talk to the CRNAs. You want to schedule a shadow day. If you want to go back again, go back again. And you can also gauge the place if they're working with you, if they are giving you a chance to interview them and to check it out to really see if it's a good fit, because you don't want to start there and then be like, oh my God, get me out of here. No, you know what I mean? They don't want that either. So I think it's got to be, you want to interview them as much. And yes, talking to the CRNAs that are working there, talking to the attendings that you're going to be working with, and you yourself getting a vibe and feeling out the place. That is so crucial. Even if you have to, I think I was in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, can't remember, probably it was Massachusetts at that point. But I flew to Chicago in and out to talk and to, you know what I mean? Like to walk around the facility to see it because, and they even said, they were like, I'm going to just, like the leader was like, I'm going to walk away. I want you to just talk to everybody. And most people are very gracious and will talk to you. Again, but you got to come from that place of wanting to get to know them. How is your practice? How is your life? What it is that you're doing? How often are you called in? Is the call requirement really the call requirement? Do I really get done at 3 or is it more of like a 5 o'clock? Really getting those things to see if you're getting what you are promised. Cause those are those little things that I just had to learn as I went. Like, oh, I'm like not leaving until 7 p.m. Like this was not, this was not what I signed up for.
Well, and it's interesting, right? So, and I don't go to many conferences, but every couple of years I go to AMA, the ASA. I go to the big ones,
Yeah.
and you see the heavy hitters there. Um, they're offering contracts there. Here's the job. Here's this fabulous sign-on bonus. Here's the money. Sign today. Sign today. And I'll never forget it. It's happened multiple times where people will come up to me and they're like, "Hey Keith, I just got this job offer," and they're first year students, right? And they're like, "I just got this job offer," and they're like, "Sign today," and they're like, "What do I do?" And I'm like, "I would run." I'm no disrespect to a practice, but that and going back to like the process of go through your schooling, go through your rotations, learn what you like, what you don't like. I'll give an example. There are a lot of CRNAs that if they don't have to do a pediatric patient, they're very happy, right?
Oh, yes.
So you want to go through those. You want to go through your rotations to really get an understanding of what you want to do,
Yeah.
or what you'd like to do. Because I always say, when you're looking for a job for the now, you're always looking for a job for the future,
Mm.
right? Because you don't know which way the future is going to take you. Like you may get this ultimate job, but then next thing you know, you got to move to Wilmington, Delaware for whatever reason, and it's like, oh my,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I truly believe that go through your rotations, figure out what you like, figure out, again, do you want to take call? Are you looking for a particular shift? Those things are just so important. And when I go to the conferences and people are just being offered these contracts, sign, sign, sign. And look, I get it. It's anesthesia. It's hot. The one thing I say, it's the best time to be an anesthesiologist or a CRNA right now because 25 years ago, the salaries weren't what they were.
No, no. And even like, I was like, I was actually in my car today thinking about what I made as like a 1099 PRN then. I mean, it's almost like 100% increase. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy how much it's changed. Sorry, I interrupted you. What were you
No,
saying?
no,
You were
you're
saying
fine.
something.
But it is interesting, and it's just so important. You don't want to put yourself in a position when you take a a new job that you're going to regret, right? Let's say you sign that contract. Let's say it's a $75,000 sign on, and it may be a 5 year commitment. Who knows, whatever that is. But then you get there, like you haven't toured the ORs, you haven't met with people. You get to this facility, and you're like, oh my God, what did I sign? And now I have a restrictive covenant that okay, I moved to an area, and that's also a big one in anesthesia, where it's like I bought this house, I had my kids here, and now I can't move because, or I have to drive outside that restrictive covenant, which can be 45 minutes, an hour, whatever that case may be, because there are some very restrictive covenants.
Yeah. Can you explain what that is to some of our listeners that don't know what a restrictive covenant is? There's another name for them too.
Non-compete.
Non-compete clause. Yeah. Can you go into that a little bit for them?
Yeah. So restrictive covenant, what it is it's a clause in your contract that um, if you want to work within a particular area and you decide to leave that practice, there will be a covenant in there that can say that you would not be able to perform services or work within a mile radius. It all depends on the practice and how they set it up. So let's say, you take a job in New York City and Manhattan and you sign a contract with a restrictive covenant of 5 miles or 10 miles of a practice's location. That's a huge area in New York City, right? So, you may have to move outside that non-compete or travel outside that non-compete if you decide to take a new position. And what I've seen more times than not through the years, and it's kind of sad. Um, and not saying that practices shouldn't protect themselves. I totally get it. Um, you know, Physicians, CRNAs come to me, and it wasn't what they signed up for. But they started working there, and they're like, I got to make a move. I'm not seeing my family. I'm working post call, not even getting paid for it. All these little things. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. You're looking at me. Trust me, they're out
Uh-uh.
there. And they come to me, and they're like, "What do I do?" And it's like you go through the process. You try and find them something else. There are practices that will hold your feet to the fire, and they can come after you. For money. I've seen it, and like, what do you do? And more times than not, and here's the sad thing about it, is the provider, the anesthesia provider, will be like, you know what, I'm not going to fight this. I'm just going to stay where I'm at. So they're going to not see their family. There are people who come to me and they're like, it's not about the money anymore. I'm just not happy, right? And that makes me sad. And again, I understand there's a place for restrictive covenants. I get that. But, there are practices out there that can truly lock you out of an area. I've seen it. New York, Chicago, some of these bigger practices, they have multiple facilities, 10-mile, 15-mile non-competes that, like, oh, can't work there, can't work there. So when we're talking about a non-compete or a restrictive covenant, it's just so important to look at that and be prepared. If you're going to sign that, if you're looking for a position for the now and you want to look for a position for the later and your plan is to stay in, let's say, Chicago, that could affect you if you go to look for another position down the road.
Yeah. And I think, again, that ability to see, I mean, that's like the CRNA school process. You have to see the big picture vision, right? You have to have your vision to propel you forward, because or else you're going to get so caught up in the now. And that's another thing too. I'm so glad you brought up like sign-on bonuses as well. And that whole, like, I was with a big company in Chicago initially, and we had a non-compete. We ended up getting it lifted. A lot of drama happened. If you guys, in my boards and beyond, my coaching program, you get all the details, you get all the contract malpractice. I have a whole packet and bundle in there about, finding jobs and learning from all the mistakes I made. But yeah, look for the non-competes in your practice. Number one, like, look for those, or in your contracts. I'm sorry. Look for those in your contracts. Because yeah, you don't want to sign your life away because of money. And that brings me to the money thing. Money is really not everything. And I'm at a point in my career where I actually pick and choose kind of who I work with. Like, I've kind of worked at a lot of places. I've done that. I'm at a place in my career now where I just choose who I work with. And I would rather work with good people than make all the money in the world. But I also was in a place before where I just wanted to make money and get experience, and I didn't care. I didn't, you know what I mean? My priorities were totally different. But I just say that don't get so caught up in what the dollar sign looks like. And yes, I know you're getting out of school. I know you're negative. I know you're overdrafting. I know them 6-figure debt doesn't look pretty. Money comes and goes. You have the ability to make as much or as little as you want. But just, again, really look through those contracts, look at the non-compete, look at for the sign-on bonuses. how much you have to pay them back if you do terminate and leave early, because there really is a way out of everything, guys. Everything is temporary. There is a way out of everything. um but I just want y'all to be mindful of that and really just remember that money is great, but your life is so much greater, and your lifestyle and being happy at work and enjoying most of the people you work with. There's no perfect job. There's always going to be an element of making it work and, whatever. But for the most part, find something that's going to fit the life that you want to have, the life that you want to build post CRNA school. So I love that you brought that up, especially with those sign-on bonuses. I mean, they can look very, I mean, even I see some job. I think I saw a job in Montana that was like $400,000 to $800,000 a year for CRNA. I was like, going to Montana.
Well, and here's the thing, with that CRNAs are learning. Look, I'm down here in Florida. The market for the money down here isn't that great. It was always sold through the years. Oh, you got the beaches, you got you know, everybody vacations in Florida. I get it. Like I'm
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
but it is very expensive. Like you even look at South Florida. The money down there really isn't that good. And what CRNAs are now doing is they're like, you know what? My family's down there, and all that's great, but I'll live in a Montana, and I can always hop on a plane, make $450,000 a year, live in Montana, and then come back every weekend if I want to, or once a month. So I mean, the world's such a much smaller place
yeah.
that just living in a particular area. I get it if you need to live there, totally different story. But CRNAs could really live anywhere and always go back to the places they love.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up. I actually was literally just talking to my husband about this today, because I'm like, I don't know. I'm like kind of thinking like we kind of got out of a really hard season and chapter, and I'm kind of in this space of like, what do we do next? You know what I mean? Like, what's next for us? Where are we going? Like, we're just kind of in this weird space. And I literally I think I was on one of the Facebook sites, one of the, our mini kind of CRNA sites. And the CRNA basically said that I believe she lives down in Florida or somewhere in the South. And obviously I'm in Illinois, which we're paid very well in Illinois. It's really nice. I work with so many great people here. It's great. It's freezing. I can't stand it, but our summers are good. Our springs are nice. But basically what she does is she goes to either Michigan or Wisconsin or, one of these Midwest states. She goes 2 weeks on and then 2 weeks off. And
Yeah.
then she does that. And I talked to somebody else who's doing just kind of contracts in his area. There's another CRNA I'm going to have on the podcast soon who does contracts. And again, my kids are younger, so I don't quite have the flexibility in trying to figure that out. But I just want y'all to know there is so much out there. There are so many ways that you can build your schedule and build your life. But again, it comes down to, what do you want? What do you want your life to look like post school? What are your priorities? What are your non negotiables? And again, talking to companies, having meaningful conversations with these companies, with these people, and figuring out, is it what you want? Are you a good fit for them? And etc. So with that being said, Keith, how do you kind of match people? Like, you're kind of like a matchmaker. Like, how do you match the right CRNA with like the right place? Like, how do you help guide, especially for our new grads? How do you help guide them through that process?
So, and again, it goes back to those meaningful conversations. Um, because we don't want to waste anybody's time. I mean, and I hear those stories too. Recruiters wasting my time. I get an email. I'm looking in Chicago, and I get a job in Montana, right? So, it really goes back to those meaningful conversations of who that person is. Obviously, are they clinically sound? Those types of cases. Are they able to do those cases? Those are probably priority one and priority two. Are they going to fit in well with that practice? And then are they going to be able to do those types of cases? And also, okay, be it their schedule, what are they looking for, so on and so forth. And then obviously the pay, right? And it's really just those check marks of going down geographically, clinically sound, the kind of schedule they're looking for, the salary, 1099, W-2, and then kind of matching them that way, and then having conversations with them about the practice. And here's the thing too, and it goes back to really our first thing, the stigma of recruiters. And there are recruiters who will just send your CV anywhere to kind of see if it sticks. I don't get it. Never understood it, but it does happen. and from a client perspective or a CRNA perspective. They're like, oh, my CV was sent to this practice. Like, I don't even know who this practice is. But go back to like with that, and it's like we talk to you on the phone about the position. We're like, hey, Amanda, we got this great position in Montana. It's got these kinds of cases. It's this kind of schedule. It's $400,000 a year, right? With 10 weeks of vacation. Hey, is it something you could be interested in? And we don't send your CV to any practice unless you're like, hey, you know what? I'd love to speak to Dr. So and so or the chief CRNA because I think that's a betrayal. You're sending people's information to places they may not want to be sent. And I think that's really important to understand. And I tell everybody who sends their CV to us is that your CV is safe with us. It's only going to be sent to a practice unless only if we speak to you about the position and you give us permission to send that CV over to the practice. And it is very interesting. Practices, sometimes you do get those permissions, and you go to the practice, and the practice is like, "Oh, I have that CV ready," and I'm like, "Well, how did that happen?" And I'll go back to the nurse anesthetist, and they'll be like, "I have no idea how that happened." Like, absolutely no idea. And I know sometimes things can kind of get lost in the shuffle or things like that, but that's why we like to kind of clear the name with the practices that we recruit for because we don't want to mess with, you could be speaking with that practice, right? And we don't want to, like, they call it double dipping. We don't want to get involved with that. Like, we just want a nice, clean transition, to having that conversation with you, getting your permission to send that CV over to the practice, and then rolling from there.
So I know a lot of new grads are kind of like, what do I put on my CV? I have all this nursing experience, school, and obviously nothing. So, because I think, is it still Typhon? I don't know if they still have the Typhon, but your clinical number is everything you have to get and all of that. What would your advice be, or what are facilities looking for from new grads that essentially don't have their experience yet? They have their clinical experience from school and that's it. Like, how would you suggest they structure their experience?
Yeah, I mean, my thought process in speaking with my clients, you know, less is more. Like I always say, look at a CV, and I think that's really important to have your career on there and everything like that. But the way I like to speak with my clients is, don't always just look at the CV for what's on the CV. Talk to the person. It goes back to meaningful conversations, right? So, in this fast-paced world, it's like, oh my God, they can be getting 20 CVs, and they're like, oh my God, and like, I'm looking for this, and this, and it's like, oh, it's just too much. Pertinent information, your job history. If there's any gaps in your CV, maybe explain those on your CV. I think that's really important, but not putting too much information on your CV. Um, I think practices look more for the gaps, more importantly. And you can talk about whether it's on a phone interview or an on site interview of your experiences through your career, be it nursing and all the way through CRNA school and practices that you've worked with.
Okay. Yeah. And I think even listing, like, obviously, um, you know, highlights of kind of your nursing career, the ICUs you've worked in, and that. And then again, your clinical sites, like those the clinical sites, the type of cases you did there, obviously the max, the regionals, the OB, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I feel like they would want to see that, like kind of focusing
Yeah,
on
of
those
course. Yeah.
sites initially. Yeah. And being able to, and again, I know you guys are listening. I know you're tired. And CRNA school is exhausting. But again, it's all going to come full circle for you. And all that hard work you're doing in clinical is going to pay off. I was even talking to someone the other day who is not getting like a ton of regional experience, is super worried about finding a job and, not being competent when he gets out. Do some of your clients, do they teach on the job? Like, do you look for that? Like, the part of that kind of, are they CRNA friendly? Are they respectful of CRNAs? Because I try to say that, I always tell everybody, I didn't do OB for 2.5, 3 years, and I had to just relearn OB. I mean, I pulled out my old notes, my textbooks, I read recent literature. I sucked at epidurals for a month until I just kind of hit my stride. So you can always relearn things. There's conferences, there's so much you can do. But do you find that facilities, if CRNAs want to learn regional and stuff like that or do OB, do you find that they are willing to teach? Do you?
Yeah, well, it really depends on the practice.
Yeah.
But that's where the vetting kind of comes out in, having those conversations with leadership. If you're not if you haven't been able to do OB or regional, and we maybe need a little ramp up. You haven't done it in 2 or 3 years. Are you willing to take the time to get that CRNA up to speed or not? I mean, and there are practices, absolutely, they embrace that. I mean, they can, with scheduling these days, they're able to, have you do the cases you're comfortable with. But then, maybe the chief CRNA will work with you, be it on regional or OB, to kind of get you up to speed. Yeah, they are out there.
Perfect. And again, just say, and so you guys heard it. He's like, he knows about a lot of more places than I do, USA, like, nationwide. And really, I think just being honest, I think it does come down to being honest about your clinical experience. And again, your willingness to persevere, your willingness to learn, your willingness to fall on your face a little bit here and there. I mean, humility and flexibility, I think, are the keys that will get you far as a CRNA with any job, anywhere, any place, and just being real about kind of where like you're at. Um, so question, because it's like super controversial, so I'd love to get your opinion. A
Sure.
lot of a lot of new grads, because it's always like this unspoken rule, I feel like, go to the hospital, get all your experience, go, kill yourself, getting all the call and doing all the things, the experience, and then you can go to a surgery center or an office or stuff like that. Do you see a lot of new grads being placed in surgery centers? Do you think that's a good thing? Do a lot of them go to hospitals? What's kind of been your vantage point on that?
So there's a couple things here. So, like, I guess my opinion is you go to school to learn all these cases, right? And I feel it's important that you use those cases, right? Because you're young, you have a whole career ahead of you. I think it's important to find a practice where you can do a variety of cases. I think that's so important because you never know which way again life is going to take you, unless you have a practice that will embrace you and get you back up to speed, be it OB or regional, right? I feel it's important that you do your cases. There are practices out there that may just throw you in a surgery center, right, and doing GI, right, and that's really not what you go to school for, right? I think it's important to uh, go to school and come out and do the cases that you were meant to do. I think that's really important. Look, there's
Yeah.
a place in this world for surgery centers. Um, you know, get your experiences, and then you can kind of I almost like to say wind down. That's not fair because you're always continually working hard,
Yeah.
but you want to maybe do like easier cases down the road in your career.
I know, like cataracts, like when I'm like 90, if I still want to work, catch
Well,
me at
yeah,
a catch me doing some
well, and
cataracts.
here's the thing, like with cataracts, right? Like I have an eye center in where are they in Brooklyn, and they pay really well, like
Oh, I
really well,
know.
like three
I
hundred
know.
fifty thousand dollars as a W-2, and you're out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? But again, right, but you've been through your experiences,
Yeah.
right? And you like I'll say you've been there, you've done it. But
Yeah.
there becomes a time and a place when like that type of job may be of interest to you. It
Yeah.
could be later on in life. Again, you don't know how things change in life. You want to be home. You have to be home for your kids in the evening, right, or whatever the case may be. And those jobs are there too, and they
Yep.
pay very well also.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at least in my opinion, I think it's important to use the skills that you've learned and use them as long as you can until you're ready to make that commitment to moving into a surgery center job, fast-paced surgery center job.
Mm.
At least that's what my thoughts are.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I always say too is, you can work wherever you want. The main thing is, do the surgery centers, do the places have the emergency equipment you need? Is there an MH cart? Do they have well-trained, licensed up staff? Because you guys will be surprised out there. You got to, sometimes the staff that you think are licensed and have their titles, they're not. So you just have to, is the staff competent? Are they good? Like I said, the MH cart, emergency equipment. I know sometimes you have to buy your own McGrath or video scope and that, but do you have what you need in case things have gone wrong? Do you feel comfortable there? Do you think it is safe there for your patients, right? Looking at all of that. And again, it all comes down to your basics, right? Managing the airway. When things go wrong, are you going to know what to do? It's all your foundational basics. So I say you can go wherever you want. You can work wherever you want. Is it a safe facility? Are you comfortable there? And again, how strong is that foundation? Like build that foundation up. It'll never fail you. Even like, I had a patient last night and I was, all my all my critical care nursing came in, right? Cause I'm titrating pressors and I'm doing this. And again, there's no one behind you helping you. Like you're making those decisions as the CRNA. And a lot of y'all are, very autonomous at the bedside doing that. You know what I mean? But now you have a patient asleep, you have an open body in front of you, you have an unstable patient, you know what I mean? So it's just adding all these extra layers to things. So that's why your foundation is so key. Your foundation you can take with you everywhere as long as you have that. But I love what you said, Keith, though, about like diverse, like just like do diverse cases, do what you train so hard to do. I'm not saying, I mean, you can pick and choose. Do you want to do hearts? Do you want to do OB? You want to do peds? That's not, everybody likes to do all those things, but diversity of cases, I think, is really key. I love that. I think that's
And just kind of piggyback. I mean, look, you live this, right, on a daily basis. And that's where, is it a safe practice, right? It goes back to, CRNAs that are being offered first year students. Here's this contract, sign it today. Sign it. And next thing you know, it's like you get to the practice and like, is it a safe practice? Do I want to risk my license and put yourself in a position that's not safe for you or the patient or anybody that's around you? And it just to piggyback that, it's just so important.
Yeah. And I think too, pressure, I think the reasons I think people get so frustrated with recruiters, I feel like it's just all that pressure. Like you just feel like, oh my God, do I have to sign? Do I have to do this? Like, and then they're coming at me with $200,000 sign-on bonuses. And that, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's just all that pressure. And I like that you're like, let's take a step back. I know what my client wants. Let me see what you want. And let's see if we can make like a good match. And I like that because I think it's just all that pressure. And even I did so much travel nursing as an RN around the country, and I worked with great recruiters. I mean, they were so good to me when I got like food poisoning and I couldn't live, like, they worked it out with my facility, like there are just so many good people out there, y'all. So don't forget, don't let a few rotten eggs spoil everything. Like there are so many good people out there like Keith, his company, that really want to help you succeed, that want to make the client happy, want to make you happy, and make sure things are like a good fit. So I love that. Before we wrap up, a couple more things. What are some of the gaps and what are some of the advice that you would give new grad SRNAs out there looking for their fancy CRNA job post-school?
What I would suggest them to prepare, right? If you're out there looking for a position, have your references. I think that's important. You want to show up with your references when you're there at your interview. It's important to dress appropriately. There are practices out there. They'll be like, hey, if you're right across, down the street, you can come in your scrubs. They don't mind. I particularly think, look, you are interviewing for a position, and even though they may give you scrubs to tour the OR, so on and so forth, show up there looking presentable. I think that's really important. And look, attitude is key, right? Show up, get ready to ask questions about the practice. Some of the things we kind of talked about today, CRNA friendliness, have those go back to meaningful conversations with the attendings, with the chief CRNA, to get a really good idea on what it's about.
I love that. And just bring tennis shoes. I always say bring tennis shoes because you are going to change into scrubs. I mean, yes, you can put shoe covers on and click in your heels a little bit or whatever. But yes, bring tennis shoes with you as well, just in a bag. Like you said, the references, I love that. So Keith, if somebody is listening to this and they're like, oh my God, I want to work with Keith, how can they, and I'll post all his links and all his information in the show notes, but what does that kind of look like when they start that relationship with you? And I would just love to hear some of like the hot jobs you have, because I know I get your emails all the time and I'm always like,
Yeah,
I'm
we do
always
do
looking.
newsletters.
I'm
Yeah.
always looking.
So, we have a website. It's ktemedicaljobs.com. We have a job board on there where you can, filter through the jobs and see what you're interested in. Our process here, it's kind of nice we're actually talking about this. So, once you send your information to us, and I cipher through it with the people who work with me, we're getting with you within 24 hours. Like that's my mandatory. Like if they're looking for a job, you need to speak with them as soon as you can. We send you a Calendly link where you can sign up, and then whenever your time, we talk at nights. We get it. Like you're in the OR day, you don't want to talk at work. We'll talk to you at night. I mean, that's just what we'll do. Um, so we'll talk to you, have those meaningful conversations. We'll talk to you about practices that may fit or may not fit. May not fit, may not be of interest to you. But then, if it is a practice that you are interested in, we'll go over the practice with you. And then from there, we'll get you permission to send the CV over, and then we get rolling. So we send your CV over, we get the name cleared, and then we get to work. So we don't just send your CV over to a practice and say, here, good luck. Hopefully you get an interview, whatever. I always say if somebody is looking at your job, they're looking at others, right? So it's important to work with you hand in hand as you're going through this process, especially the kids that are coming out of school. You know, that initial phone conversation, work with them on when it's good, convenient for them and the client, and just kind of playing that. I call it a game of tennis. Of okay, this practice is interested in Jack Smith, and hey Keith, and they ask me, hey Keith, can you find out phone times that we can speak with Jack Smith? I go back all the way through, be it on-site interviews, you go, you visit, getting feedback all the way through. If a job offer is there, great. When is that contract getting to somebody? If they have questions on the contract, now I'm not an attorney. I do actually have a referral of an attorney who does employment and just anesthesia, which is
Nice.
pretty awesome. If you need an attorney, to kind of review. A lot of the contracts I see are cookie cutter, but again, it's very overwhelming, right? When it comes to the contracts, am I signing my life away? What does that entail? But it's good to have that protection. But all the way through, not only the contract negotiating, but signing of the contract, and then then comes credentialing. Or for that matter, what like we've even right. And that can take 3 to 5 months, at some facilities, and the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, and it can become very frustrating. But keeping that communication open all the way through the whole process, or for that matter, if you're moving from Illinois to Montana, you know, hey Keith, do you happen to know a realtor? Because we're going to be renting for a year, and like I always say, whatever we can do to help you out through the journey, we're going to do. And it same goes for our clients as well. They understand that if they get a CV from us of a candidate who is sincerely interested in this position, they know that I'm on their side as well, and to keep things expedited and things just that they don't get lost in the shuffle.
I love that. I love that. I love that process. I love the communication, especially during credentialing. I think that was the biggest part for me. You pass your boards and then you're like, oh, you can't work for like 3 months. There are some states and some facilities that can actually expedite you. I know there are people who are like, I'm working already. I'm like, I'm so jealous. I was like 4 months just. So I think that expectation of credentialing, keeping your stuff very organized, your licenses, your NBC RNA paper, all of that, ready to go, keeping track of all the malpractices you've used, all of that will streamline your credentialing because then there's re-credentialing in that. So I love that you support. I mean, this sounds great for you new grads, guys, like to hook up with Keith's company and just have your handhelds be taken care of as you're, taking a big step in your career. Before we pop off, Keith, I just want to ask you, what made you start your business? Like, what made you do this, get into this realm? Why?
Yeah. So again, it's a long time ago. And actually, I used to be like a GM in restaurant business. And
Awesome.
yeah, a long time ago in the galaxy far away. But I had the opportunity to become a recruiter for another company, and worked my way with them, and back in '09, we went our own separate ways, and I started KTE Services, and I always thought anesthesia was a really cool field. The need has always been great. You know, I always love to talk to people. As you say, I kind of just like wear my heart on my sleeve. But it's important just talking to people, and also like I take a lot of pride in this company to where we're helping people, right? It's again working with great practices and great candidates and great people, and putting them in positions is something very fulfilling for me. And that's how I kind of trickle down here, and that's how I run this business. I think just like it's so important. But yeah, that's really in a nutshell. Back in '09 when I started this company and I had the vision of this company, I knew what I wanted. And especially getting some experiences prior to starting my own business. Um, that company I worked with, people were just numbers, and I was like, this isn't right. It's not. This is not what I want. And again, that's why I've brought KT Services to life, and we've had. I hate to pat myself on the back. Some pretty good
Do it.
success in helping people, right?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, you're like one of the largest companies. Like I said, I read your newsletters. I get it. And I just, again, guys, like just seeing the building, the vision, and just the fact that you saw something you didn't like and you built something that you liked, always move towards what you do want. I think we get so stuck on what we don't want and the negative and this. And it's important to be like, you know what? This is not for me. I don't want this. I'm going to move towards what I do want. I want to build what I do want. And I just encourage all of you to do the same thing in your careers, in clinical. Move towards what you want in life, move towards that vision, because I think that's so crucial. And I think there is no greater time than now to be a CRNA. So if you're thinking about it, make a decision, go for it. If you're in school, hold on, you got this. There is a light at the other end of the tunnel. There is life for you. I believe you can find really good work-life balance with this career. It's definitely out there and available to you. And I think at the heart of it, I think we're all in the business of helping people, right? We're all nurses. We're in the trenches, right? We're at these hospital beds. We're with people in surgeries, holding their hands and doing that. And I just love that you make it possible for us to do that. So I just want to thank you for your business and what you're doing, because at the end of the day, it all comes down to that patient on the table and in the bed. And that's who we're all working towards helping. And I just think that's so beautiful and amazing. And I really appreciate your part in it and for your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me on. This has been a absolutely fabulous conversation.
Yes,
And
I love it.
just to kind of piggyback with that, that's the one thing that I think about every day too. It's about the patient,
That's it.
right? We are dealing with people's lives,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Period. Stop.
That's it. And I think I recently had I actually was a really sick patient yesterday, and I went, and he was getting, a line placed in the ER. So I went and I just sat with the family, talked to them, whatever. But it was also, I had been in their position a few months ago. So I think it's just always, sometimes it's just good for us to remember how it feels to be on that other side. And I think it just makes us show up more powerfully, especially when we're supported and stuff like that. So it really just comes down to that person on the table, because that's who we all are there for. That's what we're all doing. That's the reason for it all. And I think I love that is, I can feel it in your marketing and and what you do, is that you really care about the patient, but you also care about the people taking care of the patient, because we matter too, y'all. So thank you so much for what you do, Keith. This has been so helpful. We'll have to chat about more stuff at one point as well. I just know everyone's going to get so much value for this. Change our perspective on recruiters, which I think is so important. And I just really appreciate your time and for being here today.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for
All
having me
right.
on.
Absolutely. Have an awesome rest of your day. And guys, I will post all of Keith's links below. If you're looking for a job, he's definitely got you. So get on KTE's website and start searching. Okay. All right, y'all. Take care.